A federal judge just made a decision that could significantly impact AI development across the industry. Anthropic, the company behind Claude, just won an important legal battle that every AI company has been watching closely. The ruling centers on whether AI training using copyrighted books counts as fair use, and the judge's reasoning is fascinating. He compared AI models to human readers, but here's the twist. Anthropic just scored a big win, yet a separate piracy trial could still bankrupt them. The stakes couldn't be higher. While this federal court decision may influence other pending cases, it's not binding nationwide. More critically, Anthropic faces allegations of pirating 7 million books, with potential damages reaching $150,000 per work. That's billions in potential fines that could destroy the company entirely. The legal reasoning behind this split outcome reveals everything about how courts will handle AI copyright cases moving forward. The judge's groundbreaking AI human learning comparisons. The judge's specific reasoning reveals exactly how courts might now approach AI copyright cases. This federal court didn't just rule in favor of Anthropic. It established AI models as legitimate learners, not mere regurgitation tools. The court's central reasoning treats AI systems like human readers absorbing information from books. As one legal expert explained, the court found it's fair use if you and I pick up a book and read it and develop our own thoughts. The judge applied this same logic to AI training, determining that Claude learning from copyrighted texts operates under identical principles to human learning. This creates a legal framework where AI models gain the same protections that human readers have always enjoyed. But why did the judge go so far as to invoke schoolchildren learning to write? The judge's schoolchildren analogy reveals just how fundamental this reasoning becomes. He noted that the author's complaint resembles arguing that training schoolchildren to write well would inevitably result in an explosion of competing works that somehow violates copyright. This comparison highlights the absurdity of preventing learning itself, whether that learning happens in human brains or artificial neural networks. The judge's logic cuts straight to the heart of what copyright law actually protects. Copyright exists to encourage original works of authorship, not to shield authors from competition with new creators. This distinction matters enormously because it establishes that authors cannot prevent others from creating competing works simply because those creators learned from existing copyrighted material. The court recognized that granting such broad protection would essentially give copyright holders veto power over entire categories of creative expression. This reasoning positions AI as fundamentally similar to human cognitive processes rather than treating it as a sophisticated plagiarism tool. The court essentially determined that the mechanism of learning, whether biological or artificial, doesn't change the legal principles governing fair use. An AI model processing thousands of books to understand language patterns operates under the same legal protections as a human reader developing their writing skills through extensive reading. The transformative nature standard played a crucial role in this ruling. The judge examined Claude's actual outputs and found them to be what he termed exceedingly transformative. This means Claude doesn't simply regurgitate or lightly modify existing copyrighted content. Instead, the AI creates genuinely new material that transforms the original training data into something entirely different. The court found that Claude's responses bear no substantial similarity to any specific copyrighted work it encountered during training. This transformative analysis matters because it addresses one of the core concerns about AI training. Critics often argue that AI models essentially memorize and reproduce copyrighted content. The judge's finding that Claude's outputs are highly transformative directly refutes this argument. The court determined that AI models create something genuinely new rather than functioning as elaborate copy-paste mechanisms. The legal precedent this establishes extends far beyond Anthropic's specific case. Other AI companies facing similar lawsuits now have a federal court decision supporting the argument that AI training constitutes fair use. While this ruling doesn't automatically resolve other cases, it provides powerful legal ammunition for companies like OpenAI, Google, and Meta as they defend their own training practices. The reasoning established here could influence how other judges approach similar copyright disputes. The timing of this ruling creates strategic advantages for the entire AI industry. Companies can now point to federal court precedent when negotiating with publishers or responding to copyright claims. The decision provides legal validation for training practices that companies have defended on theoretical grounds for years. However, this victory comes with important limitations that prevent complete celebration. The judge explicitly noted that this ruling addresses only an extremely narrow piece of copyright law. The decision focuses specifically on whether AI training itself constitutes fair use, not on how AI companies acquire their training data. This distinction becomes critical when examining what this ruling doesn't protect. The piracy problem that could destroy Anthropic. Anthropic's alleged acquisition methods reveal a far more dangerous legal vulnerability. The company faces accusations of pirating 7 million digital book copies to build what they call their central library, a massive repository serving as the foundation for their training datasets. These allegations suggest Anthropic downloaded millions of books from pirate sites rather than purchasing legitimate copies or accessing books through legal channels. The judge's skepticism about these acquisition methods signals serious trouble ahead. He wrote that this order doubts that any accused infringer could ever meet its burden of explaining why downloading source copies from pirate sites that could have been purchased or otherwise accessed lawfully was itself reasonably necessary to any subsequent fair use. This statement essentially questions why any company would steal books when legal copies were readily available for purchase. Could a single legal misstep wipe out Anthropic's entire funding? The potential financial devastation defies comprehension. Copyright law allows statutory damages of up to $150,000 per infringed work. With 7 million allegedly pirated books, this theoretically yields over $1 trillion in maximum penalties, though courts rarely award maximum damages. Even minimal statutory damages of $750 per work would still cost the company over $5 billion, representing an existential threat that could bankrupt any company, regardless of size or resources. The systematic nature of the alleged piracy suggests willful infringement, which carries much harsher penalties than accidental copyright violations. Courts treat willful infringement more severely, often awarding higher damages to punish deliberate violations and deter future misconduct. The judge's skeptical tone suggests he may view Anthropic's actions as willful rather than accidental. As the judge noted, post-theft purchases can't erase liability, though they might lower damages. He stated that Anthropic later bought a copy of a book it earlier stole off the internet will not absolve it of liability for theft, but it may affect the extent of statutory damages. This comment destroys any argument that Anthropic's subsequent legitimate purchases somehow cure their alleged piracy. The legal distinction between using books for training and acquiring those books illegally creates a two-part test that Anthropic must pass. The fair use ruling addressed only the first part, whether AI training itself violates copyright. The company won that battle decisively. However, the second part focuses on acquisition methods, and the judge's comments suggest this battle will be much harder to win. This separate trial could completely overshadow the fair use victory that generated positive coverage for Anthropic. Unlike the fair use question that involved complex legal theory, the piracy allegations focus on concrete actions that can be verified through digital evidence. Courts can examine server logs, download records, and other technical evidence to determine whether Anthropic actually downloaded books from pirate sites. The timeline for this piracy trial creates additional pressure for Anthropic. The company faces an existential threat that could eliminate all benefits from their recent legal win, transforming their moment of triumph into a prelude to potential bankruptcy. While the media celebrated the company's legal victory, the piracy charges represent a much more serious threat to the company's survival. Anthropic's celebration might be premature, given the looming charges that could determine not just their fate, but potentially reshape how every AI company approaches data acquisition moving forward. What this means for the future of AI development? What if every AI developer had to buy licenses for billions of pages? Who could survive that cost? This split decision creates three major shifts that will reshape how AI companies operate. Establishing a legal playbook for training. forcing a complete data acquisition overhaul and creating stark trade-offs between innovation and compliance costs. This federal district court ruling carries significant influence despite not being binding precedent for other jurisdictions. While other judges are not legally obligated to follow the same reasoning, they can consider this interpretation when evaluating similar cases. The detailed legal framework established here provides compelling arguments that other courts may adopt, potentially creating more consistent application of copyright law across AI development. Companies like OpenAI, Google, and Meta now have concrete judicial language supporting their training practices, though they cannot guarantee identical outcomes in different courts or circumstances. This decision can be appealed, potentially reaching higher courts that could establish broader precedent. The ruling forces AI companies to completely restructure their data acquisition processes to avoid the piracy trap that threatens Anthropic. The judge's skepticism toward acquiring copyrighted material from pirate sites sends a clear message that AI developers must prioritize legal acquisition methods. This shift requires companies to purchase licenses for copyrighted works, establish partnerships with content creators, or develop original content libraries. Such fundamental changes could significantly increase development costs, potentially reshaping the competitive landscape to favor companies with greater financial resources or superior licensing agreements. The cost implications become staggering. If companies must only use legally purchased training materials, restricting AI companies to legitimate acquisition methods could limit data availability while dramatically increasing development expenses. Consider a startup trying to compete with Google or Microsoft. They might need to license millions of books, articles, and documents just to build a competitive language model. The licensing fees alone could reach hundreds of millions of dollars, creating barriers that only the largest corporations can overcome. This cost burden could consolidate AI development among a few well-funded players, reducing competition and innovation diversity. The potential for appeal creates additional uncertainty that could eventually reach the Supreme Court. If this case advances to the nation's highest court, the outcome would establish nationwide precedent for AI and copyright law, influencing how companies train models across the entire United States. A Supreme Court decision would carry far-reaching impact throughout the AI industry, affecting not just training practices, but also business strategies and product development timelines. If you're tracking AI law battles, hit subscribe to follow all updates on these critical cases that could reshape the entire industry. This ruling might encourage more authors and publishers to file similar lawsuits against AI companies, creating a more challenging legal environment. The case brings copyright and AI training issues to the forefront, potentially emboldening content creators to protect their intellectual property through litigation. This could trigger a surge in legal challenges, increasing costs associated with AI development and potentially slowing innovation across the industry. The precedent established here provides a template for future plaintiffs to pursue their own copyright claims. This case represents a turning point in how courts view AI technology and copyright law, creating a more nuanced understanding of fair use applications. The judge's comparison of AI models to human learners suggests a fundamental shift in judicial perception of AI's role in relation to copyright protection. This evolution could lead to more sophisticated fair use interpretations in AI training contexts, potentially influencing future legal decisions and shaping regulatory frameworks for AI development. The legal framework emerging from this case will govern AI development for years to come, with massive implications for innovation and competition. The court's decision influences how AI companies acquire data, how they face liability for copyright infringement, and how the balance between copyright protection and innovation gets maintained. This framework will determine which companies can afford to compete and which innovative applications never reach the market due to legal constraints. The legal precedent now separates two critical issues that every AI company must understand. This ruling represents both a breakthrough and a warning. AI training qualifies as fair use, but illegal data acquisition remains a severe liability. The judge's acceptance of AI training as legitimate learning opens doors for the industry while establishing that theft of copyrighted material carries devastating penalties regardless of subsequent fair use claims. Two key takeaways emerge from this split decision. First, Training AI models on copyrighted works constitutes fair use when outputs are transformative. Second, downloading copyrighted material from pirate sites exposes companies to catastrophic statutory damages that could reach billions of dollars. The upcoming trial addressing Anthropic's central library will test whether companies can build sustainable AI businesses while respecting copyright law. Will strict enforcement doom smaller labs or force smarter partnerships with authors? If this case fascinates you, let us know your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for the latest on AI and copyright law.